Joining us now via the phone is the American Civil Rights Union Senior Fellow, Mr. Ken Blackwell. He is the former mayor of Cincinnati, Ohio Secretary of State, Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Human Rights Council. And Mr. Blackwell, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
The American Civil Rights Union today launched a new campaign called Protect Your Vote. Mr. Blackwell, talk to us about the campaign and what ACRU is trying to accomplish here.
Well, protecting the integrity of the ballot box is essential to our democracy. Laws requiring voters to show identification at the polls are common sense measures to prevent fraud and corruption and to ensure that each year's election returns accurately reflect the will of the people. With the attack led by the Obama Justice Department on voter ID laws across this country, ACRU has decided to mount a counteroffensive to protect the integrity of ballot boxes all across our country.
So talk to us about the message and how you plan to spread it with Americans.
Well, we basically want to make sure that people understand that Eric Holder's Department of Justice has launched an all-out war on voter ID laws and other measures to safeguard the electoral process. And although Holder's actions are purported to prevent minorities from being disenfranchised, the reality is that these, actions serve to are nothing more than a crass political purpose of ensuring that President Obama gets reelected next year. Look, what we are attempting to do, and people can learn more about this at protectyourvote.com or .org by signing up to be local watchdogs of the integrity of the local ballot boxes and to fight back against Mr. Holder's attempt to, short-circuit these legitimate measures to protect the integrity of our electoral process.
So the issue of vote integrity, that's been rekindled in recent days with the Justice Department ordering a stop to Texas's new photo ID law. It halted South Carolina's law this past December. In your view, has Eric Holder's Justice Department become, in effect, a Barack Obama re-election tool?
Absolutely. Look, I think everybody should sort of focus in on the fact that over the past 4 decades, most developments in voting rights legislation and case law have focused specifically on the franchise, the right to cast a ballot and have that ballot tabulated as a vote. Now, while these advances are important, they have left underdeveloped the associated right to an undiluted count. And if we are to seek to ensure the legitimacy and fairness of elections in our country, then we must now turn to protecting what we call the other voting right and to protect it very vigorously. We must do so in a manner that recognizes that voting is a duty and that it's expected of a voter in our country to exert some effort towards fulfilling that duty. And what states, over 30 states in our union have tried to do is to put in place a common sense measure of voter ID so that people are sure that voters are who they purport to be. And voter IDs are sort of commonplace in our culture. You need it for a driver's license. A personal identification card is needed for boarding an airplane, receiving a passport, purchasing alcohol and tobacco, or checking out a library book. So to use it to safeguard the integrity of the voting process at voting stations is, pretty non-eventful and commonplace. I just had the occasion of witnessing voting in Egypt at the end of January, and I watched as Egyptians, offered voter ID cards to say, look, I am who I purport to be. Women who were wearing burqas were asked to to identify themselves, and so there were measures that were put in place that respected the dignity of the religious practice, but they had to prove that they were who they claimed to be.
Mr. Blackwell, how big of an issue will vote fraud be in the 2012 election? And if President Obama is having a hard time leading up to the election, do you think that Obama and Democrats will try to steal the election?
Well, look, at the end of the day, it is a false issue to say, all right, show me how many millions of votes have been fraudulently cast. Because I use this example. If you had a bank, if you owned a bank, would you wait until your bank is robbed before you put in safeguards to protect the dollars in your bank? And the answer is no. Banks do it all the time, and they haven't been robbed, but they in fact protect the integrity of their safeguarding of people's money by putting those measures into place. So this is a matter. Not a matter of saying that there's voter fraud that's run rampant, but we do have enough anecdotal evidence, whether it's the most recent anecdotal evidence that O'Keefe and his investigators have proved that in Vermont it was very easy to sort of game the system. We all know the horror stories of Acorn in 2008 and 2010. So there's enough anecdotal evidence that suggests that we need to put things in place to protect this from going crazy. And so that's what these states are doing. They're not using overly intrusive or overly complicated measures. They're not using measures that suppress any votes. As a matter of fact, in 2008, in the Indiana case, the Supreme Court, in their opinion and their decision, basically said that challengers could not produce a single voter who was disenfranchised by that law. And so this is a reasonable safeguard to protect against voter fraud and ballot box stuffing when we have sufficient enough evidence that there are some people out there who would do just that if given the opportunity.
Mr. Blackwell, while we have you on the phone, I'd like to get your thoughts on a completely separate issue. You were a public servant in Ohio for many, many years. This week, President Obama visits Ohio to defend his energy policies. Polls show the American public blames him for the high gas prices. Are the people of Ohio right to do so and feel that way?
Yes, the people of Ohio and the people across America are right to blame the president for the rising gas prices at the pump because we are a energy-rich country. There's no reason why we should be dependent on gas or oil or any source of energy from, dependent on any other country in the world. So yes, people are very right to be angry at the rising gas prices because President Obama has actually short-circuited and discouraged, the all-of-the-above approach that would have made us not only a energy-sufficient country, but an energy-exporting country, producing jobs and more incomes in our country.
Okay, and if folks want to learn more about Protect Your Vote, can you give us that website one last time?
You can go to two places, protectyourvote.com or acru.org.
Mr. Ken Blackwell, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.